This has been in a long time in the making. I promised that I was going to do a video like this. I don't know if you guys remember me saying that or not, but I posted the video for a recap in here, and I just wanted to talk about my journey and my conversion and what happened along the way. If anything, I hope it's an inspiration to someone and an encouragement for others. And that's basically all I want to do with this video is encourage and inspire. Of myself than I was before my conversion. For instance, I have far more love for everyone than before. I think y'all can remember how I used to be before and who I am now. I hated everyone equally before. I didn't like anyone who wasn't in my circle. I was angry and bitter. I knew that there was something wrong in my heart. I shouldn't be hateful if I'm truly saved, right? So I questioned and prayed. God and me have always had a very special relationship, which I'll talk about at another time, not this time. It's a very big topic, so I'll have to save that for another time. He leads me, he guides me, and I obey. It took him 23 years to lead me closer to him, another 1.5 years to fully lead me home. He was long suffering with me. I did not make it easy. And I truly didn't make it easy. But it all started with the seraphim. As you guys remember me telling you numerous times before, I had a really horrible fever one night. I was in excruciating pain, and I was begging for relief. And then I seen something flashing and glowing outside of my window. And when I looked out my window, I saw like a seraphim. It was an angel with 6 wings, and then it outstretched its arms, and in its hands was the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And before I knew it, I was in no more pain, and I fell asleep. The seraphim came to me night after night for 3 nights. Then I didn't see it for a couple of nights, and then I seen it one more time. And so I decided, after seeing on Pinterest that the Sacred Heart of Jesus was a Catholic devotional, I contacted Catholic churches and went to one of the very first churches that called me back, which was Our Lady of Fatima. And when I first walked in, I started crying because I knew I was supposed to be there. I don't know if I ever told you guys, but I've always had what I call knowings, or knowledge that I couldn't possibly know unless God told me, basically. When I was a little girl, I had some rough times. I ended up in foster care, and I believe that my very first vision, I guess the world would call it, even though I wouldn't necessarily call it a vision. I had a dream that my father was at the end of an alleyway, and he was in a white Ford Mercury. And the next morning, I knew I was going home. I don't know how I knew, but I knew I was going home, that we were all going home. I knew somehow. I don't know how I knew. The dream just told me, I guess. And I believed it so heartedly that when I woke up, I took my brother and we went looking for my dad. And my dad wasn't at the end of the alleyway, obviously. And then I went looking around town for my dad. And then eventually a block parent found us, and she called the police. The police took us back to the school. And then on the phone was the lady that was our foster mother. And she said, I can't handle you anymore. You're always running away. You're going home today. And I started screeching with joy. I was so happy. And because my dream came true, I went home that day. That day after my dream, where I knew I was going home. And that's when I knew that there was something not normal about me. And throughout my life, it's been the same thing. I would have a dream and then it would come true, or something would happen to me and then I wouldn't know right away what it meant until later. Sometimes I knew, sometimes I didn't, if that makes any sense. For instance, I remember this one incident. This man came to my window one night, tapping, tapping, tapping. And I woke up and I looked out my window and there was a man there. And I tried opening the window, but it wouldn't open. And he talked through the window at me and he said, how many people are in the house? And I told him, my two sisters, my brother, my mom, and my huge dad. I said, he's big. I said it like that because I felt a little intimidated by him, you know what I mean? I got a bad feeling about this guy. And then he asked me a strange question. I said, no, I will not. I believe in Jesus. And I closed the blinds and screamed for my dad. My dad ran outside. He said there was no one there. And to call my bluff, they called the police. And I told the police. And then they took a sketch. They did a sketch of the guy. They made me describe him to a sketch artist. And then I found out a while later that Heather Thomas went missing. And then she was found in a hockey bag in the river or the lake. And the man that did it was the same description of the man I gave that was outside of my window 6 or 9 months prior to that incident. That was one incident where I didn't know why I had that incident. I didn't know. My parents were saying it was a dream the whole time, but I remember, and I was standing at my window when I screamed for my dad. So it was real to me. It was literally real to me. And I wouldn't know for 6 to 9 months what that meant. And it's been like that throughout my whole life. Things either I knew or found out later what it meant. And it wasn't a coincidence. They happened on purpose. And it's the same thing with my walk with Christ. Like, I was lost in the world for 23 years, from when I was 9 years old all the way until 2020 when I was 33. Then Jesus came and he came and he saved me, right? And then I was a Protestant, but I knew that wasn't exactly a real path for me. I knew somewhere inside there's something wrong here. Why don't I have the fruit of the Spirit? Why ain't I changed in some way? Why isn't there a profound change in me? Well, there was, but not like noticeable in my heart condition, if you know what I mean. We're supposed to be circumcised in our heart after we convert, and I didn't feel that. I tried prayers, I tried devotions, I tried praising. I had a strict schedule for praying and whatnot. I don't know if you guys remember my lives or not, but I used to do live videos, and then I would also post in my stories just glimpses of my day, time lapses of me spending an hour in prayer, sometimes 2 hours in prayer, and I just didn't feel any closer, you know what I mean? I was still having my dreams and my visions, but they weren't like they are now. Since that time when I had the fever, then they started changing. For instance, the first one I had in church, I couldn't even believe it, because everybody was walking around, and usually when I have a vision, I'm not present in the moment. I'm somewhere different, if that makes any sense. Usually when I have a vision, I'm not with other people in my head. I'm somewhere else. Or it's a dream. It's like a living dream, right? Where you're daydreaming, kind of. You're somewhere else. But this one happened while I was sitting in Mass, and the priest was walking around, and this vision happened right there. It was like, I don't know how to describe it. It was there was an angel standing in the corner of the sanctuary, up near the ceiling, just there, and getting more bright and bigger. And I got to my knees and I started praying and crying. I was scared because I've never experienced anything like that. Like a waking moment is how I'm trying to say it. It's a waking moment. And ever since then, it's just happened over and over and over again, where I'll be sitting in Mass and something waking will happen. One time, it was when there was no Mass. I went into the chapel and I was just kneeling and praying, and then Jesus started talking to me from the cross. And I wrote it down, exactly what he said to me. Mother Mary will just come and show up and talk to me. And I'll write it down, whatever she tells me. And these things are real. These things have happened, and these things will keep happening to me, because this is what Jesus wants for me. He chose me for some reason. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it exactly yet. All I know is that I'm supposed to write them down and tell people when he tells me to tell people certain things. And right now I see Archangel Michael outside my window, just standing there. As I'm talking to you right now, I see him just standing there, keeping watch. These kinds of things happen to me all the time. I just sit here and I'll see things, visions, waking visions. I'll see Mother Mary holding baby Jesus, and then she'll just start talking to me. I see Jesus on the cross right now. And he's just staring at me, smiling. I guess this is what he wants me to do. He wanted me to do this video. Okay. It is how it goes most of the time. Sometimes it'll happen when I have a headache. I'll have a horrible headache. I'll come up to my room and then I'll have a vision. Sometimes I'll just be sitting here and then all of a sudden I get really excited. I get super overjoyed, like bipolar mania. I'm so excited. I can write a book about everything I've seen and everything I've experienced, and people will read it and they'll know that Jesus is real. Oh, and then I get so excited thinking about it. How many hearts will be on fire from just reading my book? And then I'll have a vision, or I'll just be walking outside randomly, and then I will be just awe-inspired by the beauty of the clouds, and then a vision. And that's how it happens. It happens all the time now. All the time. And it used to be just once in a while, like very special incidences or special times of the year, it would just happen. Like just before my baptism, that's when most of them happened. And then after my baptism, some of them happened. And then not again until Advent. Things like that. But progressively over the last year, they happen a lot. Like if I was to measure how many in a week, like maybe during the days that Mass are, I would have 1, 2, sometimes 5 in a day. And I write them down, and then I put them in my journal. And and when I obey, for instance, I've not been obeying, so I have to start obeying. But when I obey, God blesses me with gifts. Like randomly one day I was at church for adoration, and a woman came up to me and she's like, I see you in here all the time. You're so humble and you're so fervent, and I can just see that you're glowing with the Holy Spirit. And so I wanted to gift you this rosary that Pope Francis himself has blessed. And she gave me this rosary, and it must have been super expensive. The quality of it, if you felt it, it felt very high quality, and it's real silver. And I was so like taken aback, and I was like, Jesus, why do you bless me like this? And I burst out into tears and crying, and I just didn't know what else to like do, like I just cried, and I was so happy and humbled. And I get gifts like that. Sometimes it's in the form of random money. Like I remember when I was really scared a couple of months ago because I didn't get my baby bonus, and I didn't know why. And I was scared. I was like, Lord, I'm so scared. What am I going to do? And I was just begging and crying and begging and crying, and just all day on my face crying. And then he came to me and he said, I'm releasing all the money. And I was like, all the money? I wrote it down, what he said. I'm releasing all the money. You don't have to worry. There's a reason for everything. Then I've come to find out that my husband had an uncashed check from a year ago that came in the mail. I was getting a boost in my baby bonus, which I didn't know how much exactly, but it was $500 extra. And then I had an uncashed GST check. And then we got more money on top of that, just randomly from random places. Like, oh yeah, we got the grocery rebate, which I didn't even know was a thing. And it just all happened at once. And this is the kind of stuff that happens to me all the time. He blesses me when I'm obedient. He's good to me when I'm obedient. He comes to me, he shares things with me. And even when I'm having downtimes like this, when I'm not very obedient, he still gives me visions. He still talks to me. And he still gave me a seraphim that will be with me until my time here is done, along with my guardian angel. And sometimes Mother Mary has let me see scary things like hell, where I literally saw angels grabbing people and casting them into hell, and them burning and screaming. And I didn't know why she would let me see such a thing, but she said that it was necessary for me to understand what's at stake. And so I understand that this was at stake, and it gave me a really sad feeling inside. And sometimes I have really bad headaches, really bad pain from thinking about all the people that aren't saved in the world. And I have to remember that the seraphim's there watching over me, so I don't have to worry. And I keep my eyes on Jesus anyway. And I have my rosary to protect me. When I pray the rosary, it's Jesus' whole life. So Jesus is there protecting me. My guardian angel's there protecting me. Mother Mary's there protecting me. My seraphim's there protecting me. Archangel Michael's there protecting me. All I have to do is obey and cry out with sincerity to the Lord, and know that I am his and he is mine. And at the end of it all I have to do is say, Lord, here I am.